your point.
All right, legalizing marijuana, as we've never settled anything in the breaks here. Now, this is not just some open-ended debate here, and it's not just about medicinal purposes. The idea used to be just fodder for the little late-night comics here, but that day may very well be ending as the question on how to handle marijuana and other drugs moves into the political mainstream. It's a story RFL has been out ahead of in recent years. And Andrew, you've been covering this primarily, and we just have November here to prove that the national dialogue on this thing's changing.
Yeah, Rich, the idea of relaxing or rethinking drug laws, it's been a popular one on the left for years. But when it comes to marijuana, Election Day brought the biggest news on pot laws since Congress made marijuana illegal in 1937. On Election Day, voters in 2 states, Colorado and Washington, voted to make recreational use legal. No medical requirement necessary. The votes were to let people light up basically for no reason. And the referenda passed in both states with room to spare. Both measures took 55% of the votes in their respective states. It presents the Obama administration and Attorney General Eric Holder with an immediate policy decision to make, whether to strictly enforce the federal laws banning marijuana or relax them and allow the new state laws legalizing pot in Washington and Colorado to rule the day. Surprisingly, the Obama Justice Department has cracked down on legal medical marijuana dispensaries at a far greater rate than the Bush administration did. There are also calls for the marijuana votes to lead to a total rethinking of federal laws and policies relating to both marijuana and other illegal drugs. Those questions also popping up on the cover of 2 influential local news sources just this morning. The Daily News cover came out today with Pot of Gold, focusing on the push for medical marijuana legalization in New York, the badly needed revenue it could bring, and the marijuana industry hiring of one of the most powerful lobbying firms in Albany to try and make it happen. And on the same day, New York Magazine went to the cover with a massive 7,200-word article, The End of Prohibition, The Truce on Drugs, What Happens Now That the War Has Failed, focusing on marijuana and on the drug war and drug policies in general. Back to marijuana legalization and a quick surprising poll result. ABC News and the Washington Post, just after the elections this month, found a record level of support for legalization in a nationwide poll. 48% of Americans now support full legalization of small amounts. And while opponents still outnumber supporters, that 48% is up from 22 just in 1997. That's an increase of 26% in just 15 years, Rich.
Okay. I'm curious how the table is on this one. Andrew and I have debated this. I don't have compelling convictions as to why, but I still am in the 50% who doesn't think it's a good idea. You guys agree or disagree? Tom?
It's not going to happen. The first black president is not going to go down in terms of his legacy as legalizing marijuana.
Take the politics out. You think it's a good or a bad idea?
But you can't take the politics. The first black attorney general, the first black president, and they're going to legalize pot? It's never going to happen. Never.
I think it should be made
soft on crime.
Enough of this.
Because I said
legalization.
Richard,
make it mandatory.
It's a bad idea. When it came to medical marijuana, those of us who were suspicious of that always saw the camel's nose under the tent, and now the camel is 3/4 of the way into the tent with this legalization of so-called recreational use. I'm going to quote a former president of ours who said, drugs are not bad because they're illegal. They're illegal because they're bad.
I think that's misguided. And I think the issue, first of all, the issue about the black president and the black attorney general, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of young, particularly young black men who are in prisons for crimes that most equivalent
but that's a separate issue.
The young white men who committed the same crimes would likely get a slap on the wrist
Fair
for.
Enough.
But
separate
good
issue.
Or bad? Is it good or bad policy to say legalize weed?
Look, as long as alcohol and tobacco are legal, the notion that this phrase that they're illegal because they're bad is hypocrisy. The drugs that do the most damage to American society and American people are alcohol and tobacco.
Okay.
If you're going to be a prohibitionist,
I get your point.
be a prohibitionist.
Okay, but
if you're
here's
not,
the thing.
relax.
Time out. So pot's okay. How about coke?
Exactly. Where do you draw the line?
Okay. You know, I tell you what. As someone once said about another subject, I may not know how to define it, but I know when I see it.
That with
Let's
me. That's
start
pornography.
with this.
Where is your line?
How did you know?
I know. Where is your line?
Let's start with this. Let's see how it works. Everybody relax. You want to ban alcohol and tobacco?
I think you're going to get there if you legalize it. Yeah.
And why not? They're less damaging than marijuana?
They're more pervasive. I'm not saying they're. Look,
and which does the greatest health damage?
The bottom line is they do more damage because they're not illegal. If they were illegal.